Hey friends, Sarah here. Sourdough Diaries day number 6. So after yesterday's feeding, I didn't get rid of the discard. Actually, I experimented a little bit. So here's the one that I fed with you yesterday. Nothing. I'm very disappointed. So I don't know what's going on. I did put it in a warmer place, but it wasn't draft free, so I broke my own rule there. But what I did with the discard was I fed it, but I didn't add any more water. Well, I added a little bit of water, but I just fed it so that it was much thicker. So it's kind of like cake batter in consistency. And I took a picture of it for you this morning, so you could see how much more activity it had compared to this one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna continue experimenting. There's a few things I think that's happening here. Besides the fact that I've used chlorinated water for the majority of this process, that's an issue. Another issue is I think that maybe I haven't been adding enough flour to begin with, giving it enough food, but also all of the yeast that is on the flour itself. So the more flour, in theory, the more yeast goes into our starter. So, but what I'll do here, so this is the texture of the starter that's going well. It's kind of like cake batter instead of pancake batter. So I like this better. It had a better result. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide it. I'm still going to feed this one just so we can see if it's going to come back to life again. I'll add a little bit more flour to it, but I'll do this off the camera because you know what this looks like. So I'm going to divide this in half. Now I'm going to feed half of it just the same way I taught you, except with just a little less water. And then I'm going to feed this half the same, except I'm going to add a little bit of molasses to it. Now my theory here is that maybe the yeast needs a little bit more food. Why am I not just using sugar? Well, sugar is completely lacking in nutrients, right? So I'm not going to use sugar. I'm going to use molasses because although it is made with sugar cane, it's the byproduct of the sugar making process, and it is very nutrient dense. Now, I'm not going to use honey either because honey has antimicrobial properties. And so since yeast is a microbe, I want to make sure that it's alive. And although it's safe to put honey in your bread when you're making bread with commercial yeast, and even later when you're making sourdough bread, you could totally put honey in it. At this early stages, when the yeast is not very strong, then it's wise to keep all of those antimicrobial things out, including our chlorinated water. Also, if you didn't have molasses, maybe maple syrup would be like real maple syrup, not the high fructose corn syrup substitute, right? It's real maple syrup from a maple tree. So I'm going to add 2 spoons of flour. I'm going to add 2 spoons of flour in this one too. Yeah, so maple syrup, real maple syrup, has some nutrients in it as well. So I think it would be a good substitute, although it's not as dense, especially minerally, it's not as dense. I don't know if minerally is a word, but it's fine. So in this one, I'm just going to put just a splash of maple syrup or molasses. It's probably a teaspoon is all I want to add. And then I'll get my distilled water and very carefully add just a little bit at a time so that we don't overwater it. And we'll see what this does. So I hope that you are all still enjoying this process, even though it looks like we're failing, we're learning. And also, I have made many sourdough starters in the past but I've never made one with all-purpose flour. I hope we can still be friends. I was just trying to make this as most easily available and accessible to the majority of the population watching this video. So if you have all or whole wheat flour or whole rye flour, you are probably leagues ahead of us right now, which is okay, which is really great. And I hope you are. So here's where I'm going to stop with my texture. I've got my molasses all mixed in, and it's kind of like that, maybe brownie batter or cake batter consistency. And it's a little bit tan now because of that molasses. So we will see what that's going to look like tomorrow. I'm very excited. I like to experiment in the kitchen. And also it's okay to make mistakes because you learn every single time. So I'm going to stir this up and put them, all three of them, to bed, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. So Sourdough Diaries day number 7. So we did a lot of experimenting yesterday, and I'm happy to see some activity that's going on in all of what we've covered so far. So I guess we'll start with the one that wasn't doing so well yesterday because it was very thin. So I thickened it up. I just added flour to it and stirred it, and I left it alone. And there's a bit of activity that I can't see from the side, but I did take a top view picture of all three so you can see that. So I'm not going to give up on it. I'm just going to let it rest again. So then the thicker starter that I experimented with when I divided it in two, this is the one that I just kept with flour and water, and it's got some happy bubbles on the surface of it, which I'm pleased with. So I've got some hope, it's good. And so the one that we added molasses to is got the same amount of happy bubbles as its kind of twin here. So I'm very pleased. And this also brings me to think that maybe I have just been giving them too much love and attention. Instead of just letting them, giving them a little bit more time to grow on their own, I've just been giving them some more food and some more water and just loving them to death. And that's what I do with all my houseplants. And so all my houseplants die. I want to just leave these alone. I'm not even going to feed them today. I want to see how much more activity they're going to get. I might not even stir them. I'm just going to let them hang out in their room and just be alone. So instead of putting a blanket on them this time, I've noticed the top's getting a little dry, and I don't want them to dry out because that will hinder the growth. So what I've done is I've just let the lids rest on the top, not screwing them on at all. And if you've got one of these 2-part lids, you'll see me do this later too. This is how I keep my sourdough starters. I will put the rubber side up, and then I will put the little cap on it so that it doesn't seal, because like I said, the yeast needs to breathe and circulate. And if we were to seal our sourdough starter really tightly shut, it would be it could be very aggressive when we open it up again. It's almost like a shaken bottle of soda. So there you are. This is what I'm doing today. I hope that you all are well, and I hope your sourdough starters are thriving. Now, if you notice that your sourdough starter is doing so well that you'll notice it double in size, then awesome. I'm very happy for you. And what I want you to do is put it in the fridge for a while and then let me catch up to you, because that's exactly what you want to see. You want to see so many bubbles, and you want it to double in size, and that's how you know you've got a healthy starter. So let's all get to that point, and then we'll make some stuff together. So I hope to see you soon. I'll check back in tomorrow and see what the progress is on these. So take care.